This following story is written by somebody who calls himself anonymously. Not anonymously, but anonymously. And this story is called Obsessive Suicidal Lover. This is my second post here. And this time I'm going to talk about a relationship that went from passionate and romantic to intensely frightening. This is still happening, and some advice would be greatly appreciated. I met this guy in 2015 in a class I was taking to learn French. I used to sit next to this girl called Rosita, and we quickly became friends. She told me her friend was interested in me, and that's how I met Alex. He was an extremely handsome individual, and he was very tall. And I was blown away by the fact that someone this divine would ever even consider me. We met up quite often, and soon enough we began dating. The first 2 months were amazing. We would talk for hours. We would take long walks. And every inch of me would tingle with excitement. I was too much in love, and so was he. After 3 months, we were out having dinner at a fancy place, and I ordered a scotch. And that set him off. He began telling me things like women should not drink, and it was unseemly of me to do so. It came out of nowhere for me. I was stunned. He then walked off when I dared to take a few sips of my scotch. He did not contact me for a week, and I did not apologize because I knew he was clearly in the wrong. I was out of my love trance. This conservative attitude was a deal breaker for me. He contacted me a week later, all apologetic, I'm sorry, etc., etc., saying how he grew up with conservative parents and did not know how to react to my drinking. I was cold towards him for a few days, but we did patch up, and I did drink in front of him after that, and he seemed okay with it. After a few weeks, we were alone in my apartment, and we were fooling around. We proceeded to do the deed. We never had sex, and this would be our first. He refused to put on a condom, saying it was against his religion to use protection. So I refused to do it, and he slapped me 3 times and ran into the bathroom and locked himself and didn't come out until morning. I was horrified, and I didn't know what to do. I wanted to kick him out, but he did not answer me or open the door all night. Morning came. I hadn't slept. I cried all night. He finally came out and apologized and begged me to not break up. I asked him to get out, and I told him it was over. He began to cry. He picked up his things and left, and there was no contact for 2 weeks. I forgot this humiliating experience and moved on with my daily life. One day, I get a frantic call from Alex's mother. Alex had cut himself around the wrists, thighs, stomach, and probably other areas, and he had been hospitalized. She begged me to come and see him because he kept saying my name. I decided to go, even though my gut was telling me not to. I reached the hospital and rushed into the emergency room. There he was, semi-conscious. He asked me to come closer. He held my hand and said if I didn't take him back, he would kill himself next time. "This is just a preview of my love, princess," he said before passing out. I ran out of there. I did not feel any sympathy for this lunatic and decided to keep my distance. His mother called me non-stop. I had to switch off my phone. All week, she kept calling, messaging to marry him or he would die. I picked up one of her calls and told her bluntly that her son needed psychiatric help. She called me a whore and kept the phone down. 4 weeks later, my doorbell rang early in the morning. I found a bloodied handkerchief on my doormat. It was fresh blood. There were fresh drops all around my doormat. I screamed and shut my door. I knew he was out there. I peeked through the peephole. Sure enough, he was there, clutching his right arm, bleeding through his shirt. He screamed, "I'm going to kill myself for you, babe," and began slicing his wrists. He was smiling. I opened the door and asked him to stop. He lunged towards me and kissed me. My top was covered in his blood. My neighbour had heard all of the ruckus and came out, pulled Alex aside and called for an ambulance. Alex kept saying, "I love you," the entire time. My neighbour asked me to get some cloth to stop the bleeding. After 5 minutes, we heard the ambulance. The paramedics came up and took him. I slouched in the corner and began to cry because I did not expect this. I expected none of this. Luckily, he did not make any contact with me after this, at least for a few months. This year, in January, I was attending a friend's wedding in Kerala, which is in India. I checked into the Marriott. I drew myself a bath, and the phone rang. It was the concierge, or the consulate. He said my guest had arrived and was waiting for me. I thought maybe my friend had come over to meet me to discuss the wedding. I got dressed and went down to the lobby. Alex was standing there with flowers. I asked him how he knew I was here. He smiled creepily and said he just knew. Forgive me for my behavior, princess. I love you. Let us be together, he said. I created a scene in the lobby and demanded that he leave. The hotel staff was supportive and escorted him out. My mind was reeling from this encounter. The wedding was in 2 days, and I barely slept. I was scared. I was alone, and he knew I was here. There were many mute nuisance calls all night, and I knew it was him. The wedding went off without any incident, and then I rushed back home. He hasn't done anything so far, but I am sure he will try to get in touch somehow. I am scared, and I get calls from private numbers all the time, and when I pick up, all I hear is breathing.